Blood stained the Arizona dust. Bridget Thomas was fading, her body a wreck from childbirth and a journey that had dragged her through hell itself. The only thing louder than the ringing in her ears was the baby's cry piercing the twilight. She had nothing left, no strength, no hope, and soon, she feared, no life to give the tiny, helpless infant beside her. As her vision swam and her body gave up, the last thing she saw was a silhouette against the dying sun. A man on a horse, and the sound of hoofbeats that could be a savior, or something much, much worse. Nicholas Reed had seen his share of strange things on the frontier. But a half-dead woman, a wailing newborn, and a secret that could get them all killed? That was new. The year was 1878, and the Arizona Territory didn't forgive. For a lone woman with a baby, it was a death sentence. He swung off his horse, boots kicking up clouds of red dirt as he knelt by her side. Her face was ghost pale. Her lips were cracked and bleeding. The front of her dress was soaked in blood, a grim testament to the birth she'd endured alone. The baby, wrapped in a torn piece of cloth, couldn't have been more than a day old. "Ma'am," he said, touching her shoulder. Nothing. He pressed his fingers to her neck, a pulse, faint, but it was there. He looked around. No wagon, no horse. Just a small, pathetic bundle of belongings and a crude cradle made from an old wooden box. It was like she'd just appeared out of thin air, a ghost with a crying child. He couldn't leave them. The sun was gone, and the night belonged to the predators. He picked up the infant first. It felt like holding nothing, a bundle of twigs and air. "Hush now," he whispered, and to his shock, the baby's cries softened just a little. He tucked the child into a saddlebag, then went back for the woman. She was too light, dangerously light. Her auburn hair, matted with sweat, spilled over his arm as he lifted her onto his horse. He held her tight against his chest, her head lolling against his shoulder, and guided his stallion home. She stirred as he carried her through the cabin door. Her eyes fluttered open, the color of summer grass, but filled with a terror so deep it chilled him. "The baby," she rasped, a voice like dry leaves skittering across rock. "Safe," Nicholas promised, laying her on his bed. "You're both safe." She tried to say something else, but the darkness took her again. He brought the infant inside and placed it beside its mother. He was a man who lived alone, a man who preferred the silence. His quiet life had just ended, and he had no idea of the storm that was coming. Nicholas built up the fire, his mind racing. He wasn't a doctor, but he knew childbed fever when he saw it. Her face was flushed, her breathing was shallow. Without help, she would die, and soon. The baby started to fuss again. He froze. He'd never held a baby before tonight. He sure as hell didn't know how to care for one. He picked it up, his calloused hands clumsy and rough against its fragile skin. "Your mama's resting," he mumbled, pacing the floor. "She'll be fine." The baby's face turned red, and its cries grew into a full-blown scream. Panic began to set in. He searched his cabin, desperate. In a dusty drawer, he found an old medicine dropper. He filled it with a bit of cow's milk and water, a wild guess. He gently squeezed a few drops into the baby's mouth. It worked. The baby sucked greedily, its cries quieting. A strange feeling, something like pride, swelled in his chest, but the woman on the bed moaned a low, pained sound. Her fever was climbing. He couldn't leave her, not with the night and the baby. He'd have to ride for the doctor at first light. All night he fought the fever. He bathed her face with cool water, cleaned her wounds as best he could, and managed to get her to swallow a little willow bark tea. Between tending to her, he fed and changed the infant, a quick and clumsy student in the art of survival. As dawn broke, her fever was worse. Her skin felt like fire. He was about to leave for town when her eyes snapped open. They were clearer now, lucid, and filled with a desperate plea. "Please," she whispered, her hand grabbing his shirt with surprising strength. "If I don't make it? The baby." "You're going to be fine," he said, trying to sound more confident than he felt. "I'm riding for the doctor." She shook her head, a tiny, weak movement. "Promise me," she insisted, her voice cracking. "Promise you'll see she's cared for." He looked from the dying mother to the sleeping infant. He was a loner, a man with a past he didn't talk about. He had nothing to offer a child. But the look in her eyes broke through the walls he'd spent years building. "I'll raise this baby with you," he heard himself say, the words a shock even to him. "You just get well." A wave of relief washed over her face and her hand fell away. "Bridget," she whispered. "My name is Bridget Thomas." He rode like a madman. Millsville wasn't much more than a dusty street with a few wooden buildings, but it had a doctor. Dr. Henry Sullivan was just opening his office. "Nick Reed," the doctor said, surprised. "Don't see you unless you're bleeding." "Not me, Doc," Nicholas said, breathless. He explained everything: the woman, the baby, the fever. The doctor's face grew grim. "Childbed fever is serious business. Where is she?" "My place. Couldn't move her." As Dr. Sullivan grabbed his bag, he asked, "Any idea who she is?" "Said her name's Bridget Thomas." The doctor stopped dead in his tracks. "Bridget Thomas? Young woman, auburn hair?" Nicholas nodded. "You know her?" "She was with the Hallbrook wagon train," the doctor said, a strange look on his face. "They passed through last week, heading to California." He frowned. Why in God's name would she be alone by Coyote Creek? That was the question, wasn't it? They rode back in a heavy silence. They both knew the odds. When they arrived, the sound of the baby crying was a small relief. At least one of them was still fighting. Inside, Bridget was delirious, her fever raging. "She's in a bad way," the doctor said after examining her. "Infection set in deep." "Will she live?" Nicholas asked. The doctor sighed, shaking his head. "Hard to say. She's young, that's in her favor. But I've seen this take the strongest women. Keep her cool, get fluids in her, and pray." He then looked at the baby Nicholas was awkwardly holding. "Little girl looks healthy enough, but she needs a wet nurse. I can ask around town." For a reason he couldn't explain, Nicholas felt a sharp reluctance. "Let's see if her mother pulls through first." The doctor raised an eyebrow. "I'll send word to the Hallbrook party. They're probably at Fort Verde by now. They'll want to know she's been found." And with that, the doctor left Nicholas alone with a dying woman, a helpless infant, and a mystery that was getting deeper by the minute. That night, Bridget began to talk in her fever sleep. She thrashed and muttered, her words a tangled mess of fear and pain. Nicholas caught fragments. Pleas for help. A name, repeated over and over again. "Nathan. Oh, Nathan, please." The baby's father. Sounded likely. But then her words grew darker. She cried out for her parents. She sobbed about something being all gone. And then, a phrase that made the hair on Nicholas's arms stand up. "Take the baby," she begged an unseen person in her dream. "Take her, before he finds us." Nicholas sat in the dim light of the cabin, the baby asleep in a wooden box nearby, and he knew. This wasn't just some girl who'd gotten lost. She was running for her life. Just before dawn, the fever broke. He dozed off in his chair, and when he woke, she was watching him. Her green eyes were clear, the delirium gone. "The baby?" she asked, her voice a fragile whisper. "She's fine," he said, helping her sip some water. "Sleeping." Tears of relief streamed down her face. "Thank you," she choked out. "I thought we were going to die out there." "You nearly did," he said gently. "The doctor was here. He says you need to rest." The word doctor changed everything. Alarm flared in her eyes. Did you tell anyone else?" "Just Dr. Sullivan," he said. "He recognized your name, said you were with the Hallbrook wagon train." Fear. Pure, naked fear washed over her face. Did he send word to them? He said he would. Is that a problem? She closed her eyes, her whole body trembling. I can't let them find me. You don't understand. Miss Thomas, he said, his voice low. Your fever talk. You said someone was after you. You begged someone to take the baby before he finds you. She wouldn't look at him. It's complicated. The baby started to cry then, a perfectly timed interruption. He brought the infant to her, and she reached out with trembling arms, pulling her daughter close. Hello, my love, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. He watched them, a strange tightness in his chest. The doctor said you need a wet nurse. No, she said, her voice suddenly firm. I can feed her myself. I just need my strength. She positioned the baby at her breast. After a moment, the infant latched on, and Bridget's face was a mixture of pain and profound relief. He turned away, giving her privacy, and went to make some porridge. His mind was a battlefield. Common sense screamed at him to ride to the sheriff. This woman was in deep trouble, and he was getting dragged in with her. But he couldn't do it. Something about the terror in her eyes, the fierce love she had for her child. It held him there. When he brought her the food, he asked again, Tell me what happened. How did you end up out there alone? She stared into the bowl for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely audible. The father of my baby. His name is Nathan Holbrook. The name hung in the air. Holbrook, the family that owned the entire wagon train company. Rich. Powerful. I thought he loved me, she said, a bitter laugh escaping her lips. I was a fool. She told him everything. How Nathan had been charming and kind, promising marriage. How he'd changed the moment she told him she was with child. He'd called her a liar, a trap. He'd threatened her, told her his father would see her ruined. Her hands began to shake. Then I overheard them talking, him and one of his men. Nathan said he needed to get rid of the problem, permanently. He was going to kill you, Nicholas said, his voice flat. She nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. I ran that night. I took what little I had and I just ran. I thought I could make it to the next town, but the baby... She came early. She had delivered her own child in an abandoned shack, alone, terrified and bleeding. She had fought to stay alive, crawling through the dust with her newborn, just to make it to his land before she collapsed. He knew the Holbrooks by reputation. Nathan was a rich man's son with a cruel streak. His father, Abraham, had judges and lawmen in his pocket. These were not people you wanted as enemies. You can stay here, he heard himself say. As long as you need. No one will find you. The relief on her face was so absolute it was painful to see. I can work, she said quickly. I can cook, clean. I won't be a burden. Let's get you healthy first, he said. Then we'll figure out the rest. But the rest was already coming for them. A few days later, Dr. Sullivan returned. Bridget was getting stronger, but the doctor's news was grim. The Holbrook party reported you missing, all right, he told Bridget. But they're not telling the truth. They're saying you're mentally unstable. They're saying you stole valuable family heirlooms before you fled. A lie. A clean, simple lie to turn her from a victim into a criminal. There's a reward out for you, the doctor finished. They've got men in town asking questions. After the doctor left, Bridget was frantic. They'll find me. We have to leave. And go where? Nicholas said. You're still weak, and where you go they'll follow. For now you're safer here. He was the town hermit. No one ever came to his ranch. It was the perfect hiding place. But they both knew it was only a matter of time. As the days turned into weeks, a strange routine settled over the cabin. Bridget, once she was strong enough, took over the cooking and cleaning, turning his quiet, dusty cabin into a home. The baby, who she'd named Caroline, was thriving, and Nicholas found himself completely captivated by her. He, who had never wanted a family, found excuses to hold her, to rock her when she cried. He learned that humming old army songs could make her sleep. He learned that she loved to grab his beard with her tiny, perfect fingers. His lonely life was over. He was part of something now, something fragile and dangerous. One evening, he came back from mending a fence to find Bridget on the porch, rocking a sleeping Caroline in her arms. The setting sun lit her hair on fire. "You look tired," she said, her voice soft. "Long day," he admitted, sitting down next to her. They sat in a comfortable silence, the kind that only exists between people who have been through something together. "I can't hide here forever, Nicholas," she said quietly, breaking the silence. "Sooner or later they will find me. I can't keep putting you in danger." "This is my choice," he said firmly. "But why?" she asked, turning to face him. "Why are you doing all of this for a stranger?" He didn't have an answer, not a simple one. He tried to explain the emptiness that had followed him home from the war, the solitude he thought he wanted. "Maybe I was tired of being alone," he said, the words surprising him as much as her. He hadn't known it was true until he said it. Her expression softened. "I've been thinking. I could still try for California. My aunt is in Sacramento." The thought of them leaving left a hollow pit in his stomach. "That's a long, dangerous journey with a baby," he said. "Winter's coming. The passes will be closed soon. You should wait. Wait until spring." "That's months from now." "Yes," he said. Their eyes met, and an unspoken agreement passed between them. He didn't want them to go, not yet. "All right," she whispered. "Until spring." It was a temporary truce, a practical decision. But as autumn settled over the mountains, it started to feel like something else entirely. His house became a home, filled with the smell of baking bread and the sound of Bridget singing to the baby. He realized how starved he'd been, not for food, but for this, for life. They spent their evenings by the fire. He'd hold Caroline while Bridget sewed. They talked for hours, sharing the stories of their pasts. He told her about the war, the ghosts he still carried. She told him about her parents, about meeting Nathan Hallbrook. One night she told him the rest of the story, the part she'd been too afraid to say before. "There was another girl," she said, her fingers twisting in her lap. "Her name was Emma. She worked at the same shop. She warned me about Nathan. She said he'd made promises to her, too." Bridget's voice grew tight. "I didn't listen. I called her jealous." Nicholas waited. He could feel where this was going. "A week later," Bridget whispered, "they found her in the river. They called it a suicide. But Nathan, when I told him, his eyes, it wasn't sadness. It was satisfaction, like a problem had been solved." A cold dread washed over Nicholas. "You think he killed her?" "I think she threatened to expose him," Bridget said, her eyes haunted. "That's why I ran, Nicholas. It wasn't just because he threatened me. It was because I saw what he was capable of. If he would kill to protect his reputation, what would he do to hide an illegitimate child? He wouldn't just take the baby. He would erase the evidence. All of it." "He won't find you," Nicholas promised, his voice a low growl. "And if he does, he'll have to go through me." A sharp knock on the door shattered the moment. It was so unexpected, so out of place, that they both froze. Nicholas handed Caroline to Bridget, who disappeared into the bedroom as he grabbed his rifle. "Who is it?" he called out. "It's Sullivan," the doctor's voice replied. "I need to talk to you, Nick." Nicholas opened the door, his rifle still in hand. The doctor stepped inside, his face pale and grim. "The Hallbrook men were in town again today," the doctor said, not wasting any time. "They were asking specific questions. Someone saw you buying baby supplies at the general store a while back. They've put two and two together." Nicholas swore under his breath. They're planning to ride out here tomorrow, the doctor said. I heard them talking at the saloon. Bridget appeared in the bedroom doorway, clutching Caroline, her face a mask of terror. We have to run, now. No, Nicholas said. If you run now, they'll know they were right. They'll hunt you down. He turned to the doctor. What do we do? Dr. Sullivan took a deep breath. There is one solution, he said slowly. It's unconventional. I'm listening. If Bridget were your wife, the doctor said, there'd be no reason for anyone to be suspicious. A man buys supplies for his own child. Folks would just assume you two kept to yourselves because of the new family. Nicholas and Bridget just stared at him. You mean, pretend? Bridget asked. I mean, get married, the doctor clarified. For real. I'm also a justice of the peace. I can do it right now. We can backdate the certificate. Say you got married in the spring. The baby came a little early, it happens. The Hallbrooks would have no legal claim on her or the child. The silence in the cabin was so thick you could cut it with a knife. After the doctor left, they stood there, unable to look at each other. It's not a bad idea, Nicholas said finally, his voice rough, legally speaking. I can't ask you to do that, Bridget whispered. You're not asking, I'm offering, he said, finally meeting her gaze. Unless the idea of being married to me is worse than facing the Hallbrooks. Of course not, she said quickly. But marriage! It's supposed to mean something. This isn't just for convenience, Bridget, he said, stepping closer. It's for protection. For you and Caroline. He hesitated, the truth forcing its way out. And I've grown fond of you both. I don't want you to leave. Her eyes softened. I care about you too, Nicholas. But a marriage based on a lie. It doesn't have to be a lie, he said. We can make it whatever we want it to be. I'm not Nathan. I would protect you with my life. He took another breath. And if you still want to leave in the spring, I'll help you get there safely. She looked down at the sleeping baby in her arms, then back up at him, her decision made. All right, she said. Yes. The next morning, with the doctor and his wife as witnesses, they were married in the living room of the small cabin. The piece of paper in his hand said he was a husband. It said Caroline was his daughter. It was a shield, a lie forged to protect them. But as he looked at Bridget in her simple blue dress, he felt something that had nothing to do with lies or protection. It felt dangerously close to the truth. They didn't have to wait long. Just after midday, Nicholas saw the dust cloud on the horizon. They're coming, he said to Bridget. Remember the story? She nodded, her face pale but her jaw set. He stood on the porch, waiting. 3 men rode up, led by a man whose handsome face was twisted into a permanent sneer of arrogance. Nathan Hallbrook. Afternoon, Nicholas called out, his voice casual, his hand resting near his rifle. Read, Nathan said, his eyes cold and assessing. I'm looking for a woman. Red hair, may have an infant with her. Haven't seen any strangers, Nicholas said, leaning against the porch post. Just me and my wife. Nathan's eyebrows shot up in disbelief. Your wife? I was told you lived alone. Been married since spring, Nicholas lied smoothly. We like our privacy. How convenient, Nathan sneered. The woman I'm looking for is unstable, dangerous. She stole from my family. Sorry to hear it, Nicholas said, not sounding sorry at all. But unless you have a warrant, you need to leave my property. The tension snapped tight. One of Nathan's men reached for his gun, and then the cabin door opened. Bridget stepped out, holding Caroline. Her face was calm, her voice steady. Nicholas, who's here? Shock flashed across Nathan's face, quickly hidden. Just some travelers, Nicholas said, putting a protective arm around her. This is my wife, Bridget Reed. Bridget looked Nathan directly in the eye, her chin held high. I hope you find who you're looking for, she said coolly. Nathan stared at her, then at the baby. His eyes were burning with a cold fire. For a second, Nicholas was sure he would call them out, expose the whole charade. Instead, he smiled, a smile that didn't touch his eyes. "A pleasure, Mrs. Reed. You look familiar." "I doubt it," she said. His gaze dropped to the baby. "Congratulations on the child." "A girl," Nicholas said quickly. "And my wife needs to rest, so if you're finished—" Nathan held his gaze for a long, chilling moment. Then he turned his horse. "For now," he said. "Good day to you both." They watched until the riders were specks in the distance. Then Bridget sagged against him, trembling uncontrollably. "He knows," she whispered. "He didn't believe it for a second." "Maybe," Nicholas said, guiding her inside. "But he can't prove it. The law's on our side now." "You don't know him," she said, her voice filled with dread. "This isn't over. He won't give up. Not when his pride is at stake." He had a feeling she was right. They had won the battle. But the war was just beginning. Life became a strange dance of domesticity and fear. They were husband and wife, but only on paper. He slept on a pallet by the fire, giving her and Caroline the bed. Every day he expected to see Nathan Hallbrook riding back over the hill. But he never came. As the weeks passed, the fear began to fade, replaced by something else. Their pretend marriage started to feel real. They worked together, ate together, raised Caroline together. He found himself falling for her, for the strength and kindness that radiated from her. He'd catch her watching him, too, with an expression he couldn't quite read. Winter came, blanketing the ranch in snow, cutting them off from the world. It was a peaceful isolation. For Christmas, he secretly carved her a rocking chair. She sewed him a new shirt. On Christmas Eve, they exchanged gifts by the fire. Her eyes filled with tears when she saw the chair. Later that night, after Caroline was asleep, they sat in the quiet glow of the fire. "This is different from last year," he said, his voice thick. "Last year I was alone." "And this year," Bridget said softly, reaching out and taking his hand. "You have a family." Their eyes met, and in that moment the line between pretend and real vanished completely. She stood up, pulling him with her, and she kissed him, a gentle, questioning kiss that stole the air from his lungs. "I'm sorry," she whispered, pulling back. "I shouldn't have." "Don't be sorry," he said, and he kissed her again, a deep, certain kiss that left no room for doubt. That night, he didn't sleep on the pallet. He shared the bed with his wife, his real wife. Lying there in the dark with Bridget sleeping in his arms, he felt a sense of peace he had never known. The hollow place inside him, the one the war had carved out, was full. "I love you," he whispered into her hair. "I think I have since the day I found you." She stirred, looking up at him in the moonlight. "I love you too," she said. "I was so afraid to trust anyone ever again. You proved me wrong." The snow fell outside, and for a little while they were safe. They were happy. But spring was coming, and with the thaw their enemies would return. The first hint of spring brought a thaw and a decision. "I don't want to go to California," Bridget said one evening as they watched the sunset from the porch. "This is our home now. If you'll still have us." Relief washed over him so powerfully he couldn't speak. He just squeezed her hand. This was all he wanted. This life, this family, but their peace was shattered by a single piece of paper. A letter arrived from Dr. Sullivan, delivered by a passing traveler. It was short and to the point. "Hallbrook is back in town. He has more men with him. They're asking questions again. Be careful." The cold dread returned instantly. "I knew it," Bridget said, her face ashen. "I knew he wouldn't give up." "Then we'll be ready," Nicholas said, his voice hard as iron. "This is our home, our family. This ends here." He spent the next few days preparing for a siege. He cleaned his rifle. He stockpiled ammunition. He rode to his closest neighbor, an old rancher named Jensen. "If you hear shooting from my direction," Nicholas said, "ride for the sheriff." The old man just nodded. "Need any extra guns, Nick?" "Hope it doesn't come to that." But he knew it would. A man like Nathan Holbrook couldn't stand to be denied. He didn't just want the baby. He wanted revenge. The confrontation came on a bright April morning. He was in the south pasture when he heard them coming, the thunder of too many horses. He raced back to the cabin. "They're here," he said to Bridget. "Take Caroline and get inside." She scooped up the baby without a word. He followed her in, grabbing his rifle. "How many?" she asked. "At least 5. He handed her his pistol. "Stay in the bedroom. If anything happens to me, you take Caroline and you run. Go out the back. Go to Jensen's." "Nicholas, don't," she pleaded. "I'm not looking for a fight," he said, kissing her hard. "But I'm not backing down. This ends today." He positioned himself on the porch and waited. 5 riders appeared over the rise with Nathan Holbrook in the lead, but this time they weren't alone. Behind them was a buggy, and stepping out of it was an older, distinguished-looking man with the same cold eyes as his son, Abraham Holbrook, the patriarch himself. "Mr. Reed," Nathan called out, a triumphant smirk on his face. "We meet again." "Seems so," Nicholas replied, his rifle held loosely in his hands. "I understand you've been harboring my son's companion," Abraham Holbrook said, his voice cultured but laced with steel. "The only woman here is my wife," Nicholas said flatly. "Your wife is a thief and a liar," Nathan spat. "The child is not yours." "Caroline is my daughter in every way that matters," Nicholas said, his voice dropping to a dangerous low. "And Bridget is my wife. We have the certificate to prove it." "A forgery, no doubt," Abraham said dismissively. "Mr. Reed, let's be reasonable. We are prepared to compensate you for your trouble. In return, you will give us the woman and the child." "Not going to happen." "You've been deceived," the old man continued. "Take the money. Forget this ever happened." "There's nothing to discuss," Nicholas said. "This is my home. I'm asking you to leave." The cabin door opened. Bridget stepped out, holding Caroline, her face pale but resolute. "Stop threatening my husband," she said, her voice ringing with clarity. "I know why you're really here, Nathan. It's not about some stolen trinkets. It's because you can't stand that I escaped you." "You have something that belongs to me," Nathan snarled, pointing at Caroline. "She is not a possession," Bridget fired back, "and she is not yours. You made that clear when you planned to get rid of us both." Abraham Holbrook's eyes flickered toward his son. "She's lying, Father," Nathan said quickly. "Am I?" Bridget challenged, her eyes blazing. "Shall I tell your father about Emma? Shall I tell him what really happened to her in St. Louis?" Panic flashed in Nathan's eyes. The old man's face clouded with confusion. "Father, this is a waste of time," Nathan snapped. "Let's just take the child." "And do what with her?" Abraham demanded, his voice sharp. "What exactly is your plan, son?" Nathan had no answer, but the look on his face said everything. Murderous intent. Abraham took a step back, a look of dawning horror on his face as he truly saw his son for the first time. "My God," he whispered, "what have you become?" Just then, more riders appeared on the road. Mr. Jensen, his 2 sons, and the Millsville sheriff. Nathan's face twisted in fury. "This isn't over," he hissed, wheeling his horse around and galloping away like the coward he was. His men followed, leaving Abraham Holbrook standing there alone, his empire of lies crumbling around him. The sheriff rode up. "Mr. Holbrook, heard there might be some trouble out here." "No trouble, Sheriff," Nicholas said, finally lowering his rifle. He looked directly at Abraham. "A misunderstanding. It's been settled, hasn't it?" The old man looked at Bridget, at the baby in her arms. He looked at the family that had stood against his son's evil, and something in him broke. "Yes," he said, his voice heavy with defeat. "I believe it has." After the sheriff and the neighbors left, Abraham Hallbrook asked to speak with them. Inside the cabin, he seemed smaller, older. "I owe you an apology," he said. "I believed my son. I see now. I've been believing his lies for a very long time." "Your son is dangerous," Bridget said quietly. "I believe he killed a woman in St. Louis." Abraham closed his eyes. "I will handle Nathan," he said. "He will trouble you no more." He looked at Caroline, a deep sadness in his eyes. "She is my granddaughter." He pulled a document from his coat. "This is a legal declaration. It renounces any claim to the child. I've signed it. I will make Nathan sign it." He offered to set up a trust for Caroline, her birthright. They refused the money, but he insisted. They watched him ride away, a broken man who had finally seen the truth. They never saw Nathan Hallbrook again. Months later, they heard he'd died in an accident back in St. Louis. Abraham kept his word. The danger was finally over. Life on the ranch fell into a peaceful rhythm. Their love deepened. Caroline grew into a happy, stubborn toddler. Nicholas was her father in every way that mattered. A year later, their son James was born on a clear winter night. Nicholas sat on the edge of the bed, holding his newborn son, looking at his wife and his daughter, who was curiously peeking at her new brother. His heart was so full he thought it might burst. "Best promise I ever made," he whispered to Bridget, leaning in to kiss her. Outside, the snow began to fall, blanketing the world in a quiet peace. He had found them in the dust and the blood, a woman and a baby on the brink of death. And in saving them, he had saved himself. He had found his home. If you enjoyed this story of how a family can be forged in the most unexpected ways, don't forget to like and subscribe. You never know what other secrets are buried out there in the dust, just waiting to be uncovered.